Welcome students. In the machine learning course, I Shailesh Saxena, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, SRMS College of Engineering, Technology and Research, Bareilly. Students, the topic of today's lecture is computational learning theory. This topic is from the unit 4 of machine learning course. In this unit, basically there are two type of learning is defined. First one is computational learning theory and second is instance based learning theory. In this unit, the basic concept is to describe a theoretical characterization of the difficulty of several types of machine learning problems and the capabilities of several type of machine learning algorithms. Students, in today's lecture, we try to find out the answer of some questions like under what condition is successful learning is possible and is impossible, and under what condition is a particular learning algorithm assured to any learner regarding the successful learning. Before we start the today's topic, first of all we review the concept of learning, what is learning and what is learning theory. According to the learning theorem, a process that characterizes classes of learning problems, or we say specific algorithms, in terms of computational complexity or sample complexity, then it is called learning theory. That means if the number of training examples that are necessary or sufficient to define learning about hypothesis of a given accuracy, then it is called learning theory. The complexity of any learning problem is depend on the following points, that are the complexity of any learning problem is depend on the size or expressiveness of the hypothesis space. It also depends on the accuracy to which target concept must be approximate. We also say that the complexity of learning is depend on the probability with which the learner must produce a successful hypothesis, and the manner in which training examples are presented is also affected the complexity of a learning problem. All these criteria of the complexity will affect the learning through any algorithm. In any type of learning algorithm, the results of that algorithm will define in following terms. First, learning in the limit. In this term, we have a concept is the learner guaranteed to converge to the correct hypothesis in the limit as the number of training examples, which are increases indefinitely. That means if the any algorithm define any learning on the basis of some training examples, then if we increase the training examples, then the same learning will be defined or not. This comes into the concept of learning in the limit. The second one is sample complexity. It means how many training examples are needed for a learner to construct a highly accurate concept. That means to define any type of learning regarding any instance, how many training examples are necessary to define the accurate concept is called sample complexity. The another type of complexity is the computational complexity. In this type of complexity, we define how much computational resources like time and space are needed for a learner to construct a highly accurate concept. We also define the relationship between the sample complexity and computational complexity. Just like high sample complexity implies high computational complexity. If the learner at least needs to read the input data. We also have another concept of results from the learning algorithms that is defined as mistake bound. In mistake bounds, we define how many training examples will the learner misclassify before constructing a highly accurate concept. It means the mistake bound represent the ratio of training examples through which the learner doesn't define the accurate concept. So this ratio is called the mistake bound. Before go forward, we have some questions regarding the learning, and these questions are the basic motivation to discuss today's topic. First, can we have categorized the number of training examples that are necessary, or we say such type of number is sufficient for successful learning? And second, is it possible to identify such type of classes of concept that are inherently difficult or easy to learn, so that the learning algorithm is independent? In general, the answer of all these questions are not yet known, but we will give some key results through defining the particular settings of the learning problems. We also focus on the problem of inductively learning an unknown target function given only training examples of this target function and a space of candidate hypothesis. Within this setting, we will be concerned about how many training examples are sufficient to successfully learning the target function, and how many mistakes will the learner make before succeeding about the target function. These are the outlines of the today's lecture based on computational learning theory. In terms of successful learning, two specific frameworks for analyzing learning algorithm are considered. The first one is the probably approximately correct learning model, that is called PAC learning model, and the second one is the mistake bound model. Today we discuss the probably approximately correct learning model and the mistake bound model we'll discuss in the next lecture. To describe the PSE learning model, we use the following subtopics, that are: we define what is PSE, what is PSE learnability, and what are the learnable classes of concept with respect to PSE. After that, we define the sample complexity for PSE model. This sample complexity is defined for both finite hypothesis space or infinite hypothesis space. And we also discuss a concept of PSE model named as Vapnik-Chervonkey's dimension concept. Now, what is PSE learning? The only reasonable expectation of a learner is that with high probability it learns a close approximation to the target function. In the PSE model, we specify two small parameters like E and theta and require the probability at least 1 minus eta a system learn a concept with error at most E. Now, what is PSE learnable? Consider a concept class C which is defined over an instance space X that containing n length of instances and a learner L using a hypothesis space H. Then this concept class C is said to be a PSE learnable by learner L using hypothesis H if for all concepts that belong to concept class C with distribution D, where the constant E and eta lies from 0 to 0.5 and learner L by sampling random examples from distribution D with the probability at least 1 minus eta, that is the output a hypothesis H such that error of that hypothesis is less than E within the polynomial time like 1 upon E, 1 upon eta and n and the size of C. In PSE learnable, we have different variables like X, that is defined the instances described by n binary features, C, that is the conjective description over these features, H, that is define the disjunctive description over these features, L, most specific conjunctive generalization algorithm like find S algorithm, and size C, that is the number of literals in C, or we say it is the length of the conjunctions. We have some issues with PSE learnability, that are all the computational limitations impose a polynomial constraint on the training set size, since a learner can process at most polynomial data in polynomial time. It means in PSE model all the computation is defined in polynomial time, or it used the polynomial data as a training set. This is the main issue, that all things like computation and the input data is polynomial. How it will define? First, we define the sample complexity of learning C using H is polynomial, and then we define that the learner can train on a polynomial size data set in polynomial time. So we say that a PSE learnable, there must be a hypothesis in H with arbitrary small error for every concept in C. So generally we say the concept class is a subset of a set of hypotheses. Error of a hypothesis. As we all know, there are two types of error regarding the hypothesis. First one is true error and second one is sample error. The true error of hypothesis H with respect to target concept C and the distribution D is defined as the probability that H will misclassify a single instance drawn at random according to the distribution D. It means if we have a hypothesis H in any instance space X and we have a target concept C, then if that target concept C is misclassified with the hypothesis H, then it will be defined as a true error of a hypothesis. This concept is described with this figure. As shown in this figure, we have a instance space X with a hypothesis H, and we also have a target concept C. In this instance space X, we have some instances which is defined by the sign plus and minus. The plus sign are identified the positive instances and the minus sign identified the negative instances. And both the hypothesis H and the target concept C covered some region into the instance space X, and we seen that this region from the target concept C and this region from the hypothesis H is not classified to each other, but this region is classified by both the target concept C and hypothesis H. So this region is defined as, in this region both hypothesis and target concept C is classified to each other, but in this region these two are not classified to each other. So these two regions are called the true error between the target concept C and the hypothesis H, and it will define as the error of H with respect to D, and it will be defined the probability of target function Cx that is not equal to the hypothesis of x, where x belong to the distribution set D. Here it is noted that the error of h with respect to C is not directly observable to the learner. It can only observe the performance of h over the training examples, and it must choose its output hypothesis on this basis only. Regarding this true error, we remember in our previous lecture on evaluating hypothesis, we explore the relationship between true error and sample error on the given sample set S and a hypothesis H, where we saw that S is independent of H, but when S is the set of training examples for which H has been learned, obviously H is not independent of S. So the same concept is used in PSE learning. Now the need for approximating the true error of any hypothesis. It is required to approximating the true error of a hypothesis. In this regard, we have the following points. Suppose that we would like to get a hypothesis H with true error 0, then the learner should choose among hypotheses having the training error 0, but since there may be several such candidates, so it can't be sure which one is to be chosen. And the another reason for defining the approximation of true error is, as the training examples are drawn randomly, so there is a non-zero probability that they will mislead the learner. To approximating the true error is required in PSE learning model, but also it have some consequences regarding the approximating the true error, because suppose the true error is less than q with the value of arbitrarily small, then it is not necessary that every sequence of training example should succeed, but only those training examples will succeed and their probability will be 1 minus eta if they have the value of eta is arbitrarily small. The PSE learnability have the following remarks. If C is PSE learnable and each training example is processed in polynomial time, then we say each concept which belongs to C can be learned from a polynomial number of training examples. Usually, it is seen that a class C is PSE learnable if for each concept C which belong to the concept class C can be learned from a polynomial number of examples, and their processing time for each example is bounded under polynomial time. Unfortunately, we can't ensure that H contain an hypothesis H as in the definition of PSE learnability unless C is known in advance. However, PSE learnability provides useful insights on the relative complexity of different machine learning problems and the rate at which generalization accuracy improves with additional training examples. It means if we add the number of examples in the training, then the accuracy will also improve using the PSE learning model. Now, sample complexity. As we already discussed, in sample complexity we define how many numbers of training examples are necessary to calculate the accurate concept function. So in practical application of different machine learning, the evaluating the sample complexity is of greatest interest because in most practical settings limited success is due to the limited available training data. We seen in many machine learning problems that if we have a limited training data, then the ratio of success regarding the target concept is also limited. And if we have the required training data as per the problem, then we have 100% success ratio regarding to calculate the accurate concept function. The PSE learning model, we will present the results that relate to the different parameters like first M, it is the size of instance space. That means in the instance space there are M number of instances. Second, Q, that is used to define the accuracy to which the target concept is approximated. Then there is another parameter, that is 1 minus eta, which is define the probability of successfully learning through an hypothesis, and mod of H is used to define the size of hypothesis space. Sample complexity for finite hypothesis space. To define the sample complexity of any PSE learning with respect to the finite hypothesis space, first we define a very broad class of learner that is called consistent learner, and any learner is defined as a consistent if it output hypothesis that perfectly fit the training data whenever is possible. So to define the sample complexity, we define the consistent learner through which the output hypothesis perfectly fit over the training data, and then we use the concept of version space, and after that we will define the agnostic learning which accept the fact that a zero training error hypothesis cannot always be found. Now we already know that what is version space, and now we discuss the exhaustion of the version space. Any version space is defined as Q exhaustives with respect to the target concept C and the training set D if the true error is less than Q for all hypotheses belong to version space. As we seen in the figure, we have a version space that is the subset of hypothesis H which belong to the hypothesis space capital H. In the hypothesis space, there are number of hypotheses which have two type of values defined by error or R. The error is used to define the value of true error with respect to that hypothesis, and R is used to define the training error with the respect of that hypothesis. We saw that some hypotheses have the value of R is 0. Then these 0 training error hypotheses are considered as a exhaustive version space but to define these hypotheses as a exhaustive version space, it is necessary that the value of true error with respect to these hypotheses is always less than the value of Q. So we say that the version space is said to be E-exhaustive if every hypothesis in it has true error less than or equal to any particular value E. In other words, there are enough training examples to guarantee that any consistent hypothesis has error at most the particular value E. One can never be sure that the version space is E-exhaustive, but one can bound the probability that it is not. It means we can never be sure that a particular space of the hypothesis is a version space or that version space is as E-exhaustive version space. We define it the terms of probability of E-exhaustive version space. That means we define the occurrence of E-exhaustive version space in terms of probabilities. In this regard, we have a theorem that is defined by Hausler in 1988, according to if the hypothesis space H is finite and D is a sequence of instances M whose value is greater than equal to 1 that are independent random examples for some target concept C, then for every eta lies between 0 to 1, the probability of the version space is not E-exhaustive is less than or equal to mod of H e raised power eta M. To prove that theorem, we have the following steps. First, we take an set of hypotheses called H bed, in which we have a hypothesis like H1, H2 up to Hk. This set be the subset of hypothesis space H with error greater than E. The version space is not E-exhaustive if any of these are consistent with all m examples. Then we calculate a single hypothesis Hi which belong to H bed is consistent or not using the concept of probability that is defined as P of consist Hi comma Ei is less than equal to 1 minus E. After that we find out the hypothesis for all independent random examples using the concept of probability in terms of P of consist Hi comma D is less than equal to 1 minus e raised power m. Then the probability that any Hi belong to H bed is consistent with all m examples, it will define as P consist H bed comma D is equal to P conjunction of consist the hypothesis from H1 to Hk with respect to D. Since the probability of a disjunction of events is at most the sum of the probabilities of the individual events, and it will define as P consists H bed comma D is less than equal to mod of H bed multiplied by E minus 1 minus E whole power m. And we already described the relationship among the hypothesis set H bed and the hypothesis set H. The sample complexity analysis. Let theta be an upper bound on the probability of not existing the Virgen space, so it will be defined as P consist H bed comma D is less than mod of H e raised power minus Em, that is less than equal to theta, that is the upper bound of the probability. Now e raised power minus theta m is less than theta upon mod of H, and after the calculation we find the equation in terms of m, that is m is greater than equal to log of 1 by theta plus log of mod H divided by eta. Therefore any consistent learner given at least log of 1 by theta plus log mod of H divided by eta examples will produce a result that is a PSE learning. Just need to determine the size of a hypothesis space to instantiate this result for learning specific classes of concepts. This gives a sufficient number of examples for PSE learning, but not a necessary number. Several approximations like that used to bound the probability of a disjunction make this gross overestimate in practice. The sample complexity for agnostic learning. Agnostic learning does not assume that C, the concept C is belong to hypothesis H. Therefore C may or may not be perfectly learned in hypothesis H. In this more general setting, a hypothesis which has a zero training error cannot always be found. So the question is arise, what can we search for and what is the sample complexity in this case? So the answer is, we search a hypothesis H that makes the fewest errors on training data, and the sample complexity is defined as the probability of true error that is greater than the true error plus the value of q, and for that the value of m will be calculated as m is greater than equal to 1 upon 2 q square multiplied by log of mod h plus log of 1 by eta. Sample complexity of conjunction learning. Consider the conjunction over n Boolean features. There are 3 raised power n of these. Since each feature can appear positively, appear negatively, or not appear in a given conjunction, therefore mod of h is equal to 3 raised power n. So a sufficient number of examples to learn a PSE concept is log of 1 by eta plus log of 3 raised power n divided by eta, or we say it will equal to log of 1 by theta plus n log 3 the whole divided by eta. To use this concept, we have different concrete examples in which we have the values of different constants. First example, if the value of theta and eta is equal to 0.05 and the value of n is 10, then we have the required number of example is 280, and if the value of theta is 0.01 and eta is 0.05, and again we have the value of n is 10, then we saw that the required number of example will increase and the number is 312. Like this we find out the different concrete examples. The sample complexity for learning arbitrary Boolean function. If we have a Boolean function like 2 raised power 2n, then for this example the learning according to the PSE concept, the necessary examples will be defined as log of 1 by eta plus log of 2 raised power 2 whole power n divided by e, and it will be equal to log of 1 by theta plus 2 raised power n log 2 divided by e. Using this formula, we define some concrete examples and find out the required number of examples, and here the number of examples are increased as the previous example. Now the other concept classes regarding the PSE learnability. If we use k term DNF and this disjunction of at most k unbounded conjunctive defined like T1 or T2 up to Tk, then the formula is used log of mod h is equal to O of Kn. The same if we use KDNF, K cross CNF and KCNF, then we have different complexity values regarding the PSE learnability. Now, the sample complexity for infinite hypothesis spaces. In the previous slides, we show that the sample complexity for PSE learner grows as the logarithm of the size of the hypothesis space, but there are two drawbacks. And these drawbacks are: first, it can lead to quite big bound. That means if we use the upper bound like theta can be significantly greater than 1 for large hypothesis H. And second, in the case of infinite hypothesis space, we can't apply the previous equations to calculate the necessary number of examples. So, in this case of infinite hypothesis, we can state bound of sample complexity by using Vc of H rather than mod of H. This Vc of H is called the Vapnik-Chervonenkis dimension concept. It will introduce into the later on slides. Now we define that this Vc dimension measures the complexity of the hypothesis space H not by the number of distinct hypotheses but instead by the number of distinct instances from X that can be completely discriminated using H. Before define the notation of Vc dimension, first we define the notation of set ring a set of instances. For that we consider some subset of instances X from the set of instances X. Each hypothesis H from H impose some dichotomy on S, that is H partitions S into the two subsets like X belong to S where H of X is equal to 1 and H of X is equal to 0. In this concept is defined as shattering of set of instances. Now a set of instances S is shattered by hypothesis space H if and only if for every dichotomy of S there exists some hypothesis in H consistent with this dichotomy. It means if we have a subset of instances in which each hypothesis convert this subset into the further two subset, then it is called the shattering of set of instances. As we shown in the figure, we have a subset of 3 instances from the instance space X and we have different hypotheses defined by the such type of covering concepts. And we saw that if we apply these hypotheses, then this hypothesis convert these instances into two subsets. So this concept is called the shattering a set of instances. Now in this shattering concept we saw that it has the ability of H to shatter a set of instances, that is the measure of its capacity to represent target concepts defined over the instances in S. Intuitively, the large subset of X can be shattered the more expressive in form of mod of H. The unbiased H is one that shatters the entire X. If the entire X is shattered, then it is defined as a unbiased instance space H. Now, what is the Vapnik-Chervonkis dimension concept? The Vapnik-Chervonkis dimension concept, sometimes defined as VC of H, is a hypothesis space H defined over the instance space X is the size of the largest finite subset of X shattered by H. For it, we define if arbitrarily large finite sets of X can be shattered by H, then VC of H is equivalent to infinity. And if mod of H is less than infinity, then VC of H is less than equal to log of mod of H. Now, the concept of VC dimension through the linear decision surface, we define if we have a set of instances defined in any space, then if it will shattered by the linear decision surface, then the value of VC of H is equal to define if the surface is of two dimensional and if that space is of three dimensional, then we have the set of instances that are linearly separated or shattered, then the value of VC of H is 4 when the dimension value is 3. That means we define the VC dimension of H is always equal to n plus 1, where n represent the surface value, or we say the surface value of the hypothesis space. The sample complexity and the VC dimension. How many randomly drawn example suffix to Q exhaustive version space with probability at least 1 minus theta? The answer is if C is belong to hypothesis H, then M will be calculated as it is greater than equal to 1 by Q 8 VC of H log of 13 by Q plus 4 into log of 2 by eta. And if the VC of concept class is greater than 2, where the value of Q and eta lies between 0 to 1 by 8 and 0 to 1 by 100 respectively, for any learner L, there is a distribution D and a concept C such that if L observe fewer examples, then the value of M will be calculated as max of 1 by Q log 1 by eta comma VC of C minus 1 divided by 32Q. Then the probability will be defined at least theta, where learner L outputs a hypothesis H having error D H greater than Q. It means if the number of example is too low no learner can learn every concept in the non-trivial class C. Now, before wind up this lecture, we summarize our discussions that the PC framework provides a theoretical framework for analyzing the effectiveness of learning algorithms. We also saw that the sample complexity for any consistent learner using some hypothesis space H can be determined from a measure of its expressiveness, or VC of H, that quantifying bias and relating it to generalization. We also discussed that if sample complexity is tractable, then the computational complexity of finding a consistent hypothesis in H governs its PSE learnability. Constant factors are more important in sample complexity than in computational complexity, since our ability to gather data is generally not growing exponentially. Experimental results suggest that theoretical sample complexity bounds overestimate the number of training instances needed in practice, since they are worst case upper bounds. Thank you.